Joining us now for more on the fight against ISIS is CBN terrorism analyst Eric Stakelbeck. Eric, Secretary of Defense Ash Carter told a Senate hearing that the U.S. has not contained ISIS. That's exactly opposite of what the president said a couple of weeks ago. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, to me, that's very interesting, Lori, where literally our defense secretary is contradicting the commander in chief. Wow. So Ash Carter is saying ISIS is not contained. I think the facts on the ground show pretty clearly, Lori, that ISIS is not contained. And by the way, not only not contained in Iraq and Syria, but look how ISIS, it's spreading its tentacles around the world. In the past month and a half, we've seen ISIS take down a Russian airliner over Egypt. We've seen horrific attacks in Beirut by ISIS. Of course, the Paris attack. Now San Bernardino. Just last week, Lori, we see 2 ISIS sympathizers lashing out. So not only is Defense Secretary Carter correct, ISIS is not contained in Iraq and Syria, but number 2, they're not contained around the world. Their ideology is not contained, and that may be even more dangerous for us here in the United States.
Well, really, this is so disconcerting for most Americans. We're learning now that inadvertently the U.S. has actually helped arm ISIS. Tell us about that.
Yeah, if you look back to Mosul, Lori, in June 2014, that was really ISIS's first big major splash on the world stage where they conquered the second largest city in Iraq, the city of Mosul. Well, Iraqi forces, if you remember, Lori, fled in the face of the ISIS advance, and what they left behind was really a treasure trove of American-supplied high-tech weaponry, and ISIS gobbled it up. They took that weaponry, and now they're using it against Iraqi forces, against the Kurds, and against other people in Iraq and Syria. And the sad thing about it, Lori, is that, look, we spent billions to train those Iraqi security forces and the Iraqi military, and when their moment of truth came to defend their country, essentially, they dropped their weapons and they ran. And now ISIS is reaping all the benefits.
And we also have recently learned from a very credible source, the U.S. head of Homeland Security just announced that ISIS is targeting the refugee program. Yet, President Obama still wants to bring in refugees. It seems like he's not listening to his own advisors, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, 2 things here, Lori. Number 1, and again, we're talking about Ash Carter, the defense secretary, contradicting the president. Take a look at what the FBI director, James Comey, has said about the refugees. He says, you know what, we probably can't vet all of these folks coming in. And the Department of Homeland Security Chief Jay Johnson recently said the same thing, that yes, it will be difficult to vet all of the Syrian refugees that the president wants to bring into this country. So now you have Defense Secretary, FBI Director, Homeland Security Chief, essentially all contradicting President Obama. That's alarming, Lori, as an American, to see that the hierarchy at the upper echelons of our administration are not on the same page and the messaging is not consistent. To me, as an American, that's very alarming.
ISIS is obviously a threat, and we're all talking about it these days, but a lot of people think a greater threat is Iran. And there's recent news about Iran's missile program. What's happening there, Eric?
Yeah, when I talk about Iran and ISIS, Lori, I would say Iran is 1A. ISIS in the short term, we know they're trying to strike us here, but Iran, much greater long-term threat. They carried out this medium-range missile test, Lori, and the key takeaways from this are, number 1, this test, this missile that they tested is capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. Now, why would they do that if their nuclear program is for peaceful intentions? So this missile is capable of carrying a nuke, and it's in violation of UN Security Council resolutions. So what Iran is doing right now is they're acting very empowered, very emboldened, Lori. They're not intimidated by the world. They think they got the better because they did. They got the better of the West and the Obama administration in this Iran nuclear deal that was struck. And now they're kind of flaunting it. They do not fear any repercussions. The UN is toothless. The Obama administration has made pretty clear that they want this Iran nuclear deal to go through no matter what. So Iran is testing the waters. They're feeling strong. They're feeling bold. And you're going to see more provocations like this, not only missile tests, but Iran sponsoring terror around the globe and stirring things up against Israel through Hamas and Hezbollah. And now they have the Russian bear in their corner, Lori. Russia is aligned with Iran in Syria.
So we're talking about ISIS, Iran, and Russia. It seems like we're taking a beating on the foreign policy front. What should be done to turn it all around, Eric?
Well, let's start with ISIS, since that's the story in the headlines so much, Lori. I believe that we need to crush ISIS militarily in Syria and Iraq. That means destroying this mini caliphate they've set up, and which is a conveyor belt for terrorism around the world. Tony Blair, former British Prime Minister, said it. Current British Prime Minister David Cameron said the same thing, and they're right. We have to destroy this mini Islamic State that ISIS has declared. It's not an 800-pound gorilla. ISIS can be defeated quickly, but there needs to be will from the West, from Western officials. Right now, that will is not there. But if you do defeat ISIS in the Middle East, in the battlefield, you would think, Lori, that you would demoralize the global movement and maybe put a dent in the ideology. And real quick, think back to before 9/11 in Afghanistan. We allowed al-Qaeda a safe haven to plot and plan. Well, now ISIS has the same thing across 36,000 square miles of Iraq and Syria, with the added benefit for them of thousands of Western recruits who can train there and come back here and strike. That's why we need to deal with this caliphate and deal with it now.
All right. Great to talk to you, Eric. Thanks.
You too, Lori. Thank you.